It began with whispers. An old mansion, hidden deep within the woods, had reopened after decades of decay. The locals called it the Feast House. Nobody knew who owned it now, but the promise was irresistible: a grand banquet, open to all, held every full moon. Free food, the rumors said, of a quality only kings could afford. It didn't take long for the curious, and the desperate, to make the pilgrimage. The house stood as though it had been waiting, its windows glowing warmly with golden light. Ivy crawled along its edges, threatening to consume it, but the polished mahogany doors gleamed invitingly. Guests arrived hesitantly at first, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path leading to the entrance. But the moment they stepped inside, their hesitation melted away. The dining hall was opulent. A chandelier of intertwined glass and bone hung from the ceiling, casting shimmering patterns on the long, grand table. Silver platters overflowed with roasted meats, steaming soups, fruits glistening like jewels, and desserts that seemed too perfect to touch. The aromas drew everyone in like moths to a flame. Nobody questioned it, not the endless supply of food nor the absence of a host. The doors shut quietly behind them, and the feast began. The first bite was transcendent. The food tasted better than anything they had ever eaten. Tender meats fell apart on their tongues, sweet and tart fruits exploded with flavor. Some swore they could taste memories in the food, flashes of childhood summers, first loves, fleeting moments of joy. Laughter and conversation soon filled the hall, strangers bonding over the exquisite feast. Yet as the hours stretched on, the laughter grew strained. Guests noticed peculiarities but couldn't quite name them. The mirrors lining the hall shimmered, their reflections not quite matching reality. Some showed figures slightly hunched, with limbs bending awkwardly. Others glimpsed shadows that didn't belong to anyone at the table. One man, eager to reassure himself, laughed off his unease and reached for another slice of bread. As he did, his wedding ring slid off his finger and clinked to the floor. He frowned, flexing his hand. His fingers looked longer. He glanced around, suddenly noticing the others. The woman next to him wiped her mouth with a napkin, her lips stretching unnaturally wide. A teenage boy opposite him scratched his neck. The skin sagged as though it no longer fit his body. A child tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Your smile looks scary, Mama." But the food was too good to leave. That was the cruelest part. Even as their bodies began to change, they couldn't stop eating. They tried to fight it. The more they realized something was wrong, the harder they tried. Yet every forkful brought a moment of bliss too powerful to resist. One woman stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. "We need to leave," she gasped, but her words came out garbled. Her jaw had slackened, her face drooping like melted wax. When she turned toward the door, her legs gave way beneath her. She collapsed to the floor, her arms bending backward in an unnatural arc. The others watched in stunned silence as she began to crawl on all fours, her bones audibly cracking, her fingers elongating with each movement. The realization dawned too late. By then, their own transformations had begun in earnest. Skin hung in loose folds, pooling at their wrists and ankles. Their spines arched painfully as their bodies reshaped themselves. One man tried to cry out, but his voice came as a choking laugh, his lips drawn back into a grotesque grin. The mirrors no longer reflected humans at all. The figures in the glass were monstrous, twisted, elongated creatures, grinning ear to ear, their eyes wide with hunger. By dawn, the dining hall was quiet. The plates sat empty, the chairs abandoned. The last of the guests crawled toward the kitchen, drawn by some unseen force. The grand doors of the feast house creaked open again, the warm glow spilling out into the woods as if nothing had happened. Weeks later, a new group of travelers arrived at the mansion, drawn by the rumors of the free banquet. They stepped inside, marveling at the beauty of the dining hall. But as they sat to eat, none of them noticed the kitchen doors swinging open, or the figures lurking in the shadows beyond. The mansion's new staff watched silently, their grotesque forms hidden in the dim light. Their stretched, Slack faces and grins never wavered as they prepared the next feast. They had no choice. After all, the feast house had given them purpose. And the feast never ended.